As if a rescue from a 30-foot dam weren't treacherous enough, illegally parked cars made it difficult for first responders to get through. In total, 5 cars were towed away as the incident unfolded in the water below. And it's not an unusual occurrence. This is the 8th rescue here this summer alone. We bring you a developing story this morning out of Tompkins County. WENY News received information from Ithaca Police at 3 o'clock this morning regarding an armed robbery. Facebook is kicking off the largest voting registration campaign in U.S. history for Independence Day. You pay taxes to New York State, and Cornell students pay tuition to the university. Yet repeatedly over the past several years, this Ivy League has been allotted hundreds of thousands of dollars in the state's budget. Yet no one has a clear idea of how it's being spent. Governor Cuomo believes controversy surrounding the state's ruling that bars must serve food with alcohol stems from a, quote, disconnect. Definitely a worthy cause. Kicks off at 9 a.m. on Turkey Day. A good way to burn off your turkey and contribute to a child's education. You'll feel good about yourself, both in your tummy and your heart. And make sure you remove anything from your yard that could present a hazard to visitors. As you're out on the roads, make sure you're driving slowly. You never know what creature may suddenly cross your path. And if you have pets, it's best to keep them away from costumed children. Your pet might not recognize the child and might become frightened. Lots of rules to keep in mind, but it's all just so you can have a safe and happy Halloween. New this morning, the Roman Catholic bishop named by Pope Francis to investigate the church's response to clergy sexual abuse in Buffalo has now himself been accused of sexually abusing a child. The craziness of back to school can mean nutrition falls to the wayside, but it can be as simple as grabbing an apple. And while it's important to stay hydrated even in the cold, you want to be careful when packing water because it can freeze. Instead, make sure to grab it right before you go and keep it close to you at all times. For WENY News, I'm Olivia Jaquith. Every parent has at one time or another heard the familiar cry of, I'm telling. But is tattling a normal part of childhood, or is it just a problem in the making? So 6:33, and we have an update to a story that we brought you in the first hour of Good Morning Twin Tiers. After a manhunt ensued, authorities say 2 men fatally shot 4 and wounded 5 others inside a bar in Kansas.
Wake up and, see, hear us, and be with us.
We're not here to fight. This is all out of love.
The biggest fear is that organizers will be targeted for speaking out.
How did we get to this point?
This is not a black versus white problem. It's everybody versus racism problem.
Authorities expect as many as 2,000 protesters to pass through these Syracuse city streets in this protest. Now, although united by a common cause, each demonstrator has their own story to tell.
What's happening to these other black men could happen to me on my way home today. I don't know.
My biggest fear is my son not coming home to me because he was killed because of the color of his skin.
We commit a crime and they can arrest us. They need to understand that when they harm us and it's unjust, that they need to be held accountable.
The police are not only pushing and beating up black folks and shooting them, there's also doing that to folks of all colors.
Fiery speeches met with roars of approval in front of City Hall. So many voices trying to be heard with the burden of fear that they'll be misunderstood.
We are fighting not against police, not against individuals. We're fighting against a system that they know is oppressing us.
I hope that people can acknowledge that this is a systemic problem.
We don't want any drama. We don't want any violence. We want change. We want justice.
Real actual change, not the guise of change, not, reform, really transformation in the role that policing plays in our society.
A change, one mission in mind with plenty of ways to get there. Janisha Cardwell is a Black Lives Matter Marshal Captain attending protests to diffuse confrontations and keep the peace.
Stand with us. Wake up. Look at what's going on. Look at it may not be you, but you're a part of the problem. These are your brothers and sisters. You stand with them.
Stop asking for permission. Stop waiting for somebody to tell us to get involved. Just do it. Send an email, make a phone call.
Because it's the right thing to do.
Enough is enough. We demand a different vision for our country. We demand the promises of the Constitution to be affirmed. And we're here to make sure that we use this moment as an opportunity to elevate that issue and to continue this campaign for equal justice.
To divest from the police force and invest in our community and invest in the people who are preserving Black life.
It's their job to serve us and protect us, and the worst part about it is that there are cops on all departments who get a bad rap because of the choices that one person made.
Syracuse Police Chief Kenton Buckner says hundreds of law enforcement officers are on duty for today's protest, some of them working 2 shifts to cover a 24-hour period. Reporting in Syracuse, I'm Olivia Jaquith, WENY News.
Just literally skin contact can, in certain cases, be fatal.
A derivative of prescription pain medication called gray death.
And we started seeing probably in the mid-2000s, those illicit drugs, those legal drugs, being diverted for illegal use. And then sort of, as time went on, we eventually saw a proliferation through sort of clandestine chemists working primarily in China, developing this and really sort of coming up with minor variations in fentanyl, what we call analogs, to basically trying to stay one step ahead of law enforcement and legislatures.
The law prohibits certain substances, ultimately defined by their chemical composition. That means even the slightest chemical change could give you a get-out-of-jail-free card, even if it produced the same results.
One of the biggest threats that we see is fentanyl and the deadly effects of fentanyl upon all segments in our community.
And it's especially problematic in New York, along what's known as the 390 corridor. Elmira serves as a transit point for drugs from source cities to the western part of the state.
If you look at drug dealing and the drug sale culture, it is a business. And these folks know what they're doing. They're creating chemicals that are more addicting more quickly, and they're marketing those drugs wherever they can market them.
We had a case in Elmira that was very egregious, in my view, because what they were doing was taking fentanyl and inert substances, and they had purchased a pill press online, and they were pressing them in, so they looked like oxycodone or a traditional opiate.
Does that make the drug more salable? There's a lethality attached to fentanyl that some people might be intimidated by, and therefore if they think they're getting an opiate that's not as lethal by reputation, then perhaps they'd be more willing to purchase it.
The problem is exacerbated here in New York State, where there are no analogs that are controlled substances for fentanyl. So it wouldn't even be illegal under state law.
So New York's 4 U.S. attorneys joined forces to change that.
We don't have a gun or wear badges, but we are in charge and responsible for enforcing all federal laws within our respective jurisdictions. It's my job to make sure that our federal law enforcement partners have the appropriate tools that they need to be able to do their jobs and to be able to address the biggest threats to public safety that exist in our community and across New York State.
About 1 month after Congress passed an emergency order essentially treating these analogs as fentanyl itself, New York State passed its 2021 budget. In it, a ban on fentanyl analogs, giving police and law enforcement the authority to prosecute the manufacturing, sale, and distribution of these drugs to the fullest extent of the law.
And I have many, many former clients who are currently in recovery who say that going to jail is what got their attention and allowed them the time to get off the substance and then pursue recovery.
Until we're down to zero, we're not done, but we're going to keep fighting.
According to CASA of the Southern Tier, about 60% of the cases they handle are related to substance abuse.
And just look at the big picture and help everyone, we would have a better chance of limiting the amount of substance use disorder that's going on in our world.
Now, this event is about so much more than just a fun holiday race. But if the thought of completing a 5K seems daunting, don't worry. I caught up with Horseheads track coach Adam McDermott for some tips on how to prepare for the Selfless Elf 18 days away.
Hey, listen, if I need to stop, it's okay to walk and then get back onto it, because that's how you're going to finish your goals. That's how you achieve success. I think it's important that running doesn't have to be one of those things where It is a punishment. It can be something, there's plenty of programs around this area that offers unique opportunities to get a chance to meet new people. I think when you go to a race like the Self of Self, I think it's fun to see all the different costumes. You can make it a family experience. Let's say you want to get off the couch for the first time. It's important to realize that when you go out and you're running, you're doing it for not just the benefit of just going out to do something as exercise, but also to find love for why you're doing it.
Even if that's just to support families dealing with food insecurity in the southern tier and not because you actually love running, there are ways to get yourself up and out there.
There are so many things out there, like apps, technology these days, that kind of help motivate you to get off the couch. Maybe it's a reminder. I know I have an app that tells me every day, make sure you're getting out there doing your thing. When you do it, it doesn't have to be one of those things that you go 7 days a week. It's something that you can do 3-4 times a week, and it doesn't have to be an overly overwhelming commitment.
Our meteorologist will confirm the conditions the day of the 5K, but I think it's safe to say it's going to be cold.
Make sure you have at least one solid layer on, and then from there, something that's breathable on the outside, because you don't want to overheat. I think that's important. You want to make sure you have hats and gloves, especially for this time of year. In terms of running form, the biggest thing is you want to be able to hold eggs in your hands. So you don't want to be too tight, especially crossing over like this. That creates tension and extra work that you're doing, not just on your shoulders, but also your body as well. Core, for those people that like to work out all the time, core is huge. And when you have arms going like this, or you have tight running form, all of a sudden you're tightening that too much, and you become typically slouched, or you have other issues in running.
The Selfless Elf 5K Run Walk kicks off at 3 p.m. on December 7th, but registration closes today. It only costs $35 to register, and each dollar provides 3 meals to a family in need.
I mean, you've got 3 weeks, and realistically, for cardiovascular health, it takes about a week for your body to get adjusted. Once you get into a rhythm, and by what I mean by this is you get 4 or 5 days in of about anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. It doesn't have to be anything fast. At that point, by week 2 and 3, you'll notice a significant difference, and there's no reason why once you get out there, you can't finish.
Wow, so not only are we trendy, but we are athletic. Who knew?